So this is the first project that we're going to do using Photoshop as opposed to Adobe Illustrator. Because some of you may not have had any experience with Photoshop in the past, I wanted to give you an exercise in which you can start to explore all the opportunities and options that Photoshop offers that may be a little bit different than Adobe Illustrator. Now, as we've talked about before, the main difference between Illustrator and Photoshop is that Illustrator uses vectors in order to create images, meaning nice straight lines and shapes that can be expanded and contracted without losing any quality, whereas Photoshop uses pixels, so it creates images that are called raster-based images. Any photograph, any digital photograph is a raster-based image, so that's why we use Adobe Photoshop to manipulate images. Now, at the end of this assignment, I hope that you will have more confidence using Adobe Photoshop. You'll know where some of the tools are, and you'll know some of the ways that you can edit and manipulate your projects in the future, and then maybe even beyond this class. So, first thing you're going to do is you're going to pick any photo. It can be a photo that you have taken in the past, or it can be a photo taken from Pexels.com, which is a free image source. You can use any of the photographs on that site for free without worrying about copyright infringement. You're going to copy that image. You're going to go to Adobe Photoshop. You're going to create a new document, and then you're going to paste your image onto this document using Command V. Okay, that's where I'm at right now. Now, if you are in the same situation that I am, in which my photo is too small for the document I've created, which was 8.5 by 11, I'm going to stretch the image to fill the space. The way to do that is by hitting Command T on your keyboard. Okay, that's called Free Transform, and if you can see, it's created banding lines around the image that I can then stretch. Now, if you do not want to change the ratio of height to width, all you have to do is hold down the Shift key and it'll snap it into the correct ratio. So I'm going to draw it all the way to the side, and then when I'm finished, this is important, you can't just start working on it and doing something else. For example, if I click another button, it's going to stop me and it's going to ask me to apply it. The other way to apply a free transformation is to hit Enter. So I'm going to hit Enter, and the banding bars go away, and I'm ready to work. I could now draw on this if I wanted. Okay? Go back. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take a minute and talk a little bit about layers. So we didn't really use layers in Illustrator, even though they're there as an option, but we are going to be using layers in Adobe Photoshop. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll see there is some background and a layer 1. You should also have that on your Photoshop file. The way that Photoshop works is that it layers these layers, okay, on top of each other in order to create a composite image. Whatever layer is at the top is going to show, whatever is on the bottom is going to be behind. So for example, I'm going to create a new layer down here by clicking on this little page with a corner tucked in, and I'm going to draw anything, something like this, okay? Now, because this layer is on top, it shows in the front. If I were to click and drag this layer below the other one, it would be pushed behind. It's kind of like in Adobe Illustrator where you could do object arrange, send to the back, send to the front, but it's actually easier, okay? Because I can just manipulate it over here. This also is going to affect how you use Photoshop, because whatever layer you want to adjust, you need to make sure that layer is selected. Okay? So I'm going to delete this layer just by hitting delete on the keyboard. Okay? What you don't want to do in Adobe Photoshop is you don't want to ever draw or manipulate directly onto your photograph like this. That's a no-no, because what you've done is you've essentially ruined or destructed your base image. Okay? Use the layers because you can delete them very easily. I'm going to go back by hitting Command Z. In Photoshop, you have to hit Command Option Z to go back more than once. That's different from Illustrator. Okay? Okay. It would be just as easy to create a new layer and delete it that way. So, what I'm going to have you do, now that we No, we have our image, we have our layers, tools that we need are over here. Okay, I'm going to have you go through this series of edits in order to manipulate whatever image you chose. Now, I want you to leave each edit you do in a separate layer so that when I open the program, I can see all the changes that you've made, okay? So the first new edit, it says is to create a new layer. Got it. Draw on the image using the paintbrush tool. Okay, I kind of already did that, right? But I want you to also play around with let's go up here. I want you to play around with the size of the brush and the opacity of the brush and the softness. Whenever you choose a tool, that tool is going to have options that show up along the top. For example, if I click down on this, I can change the size of my brush, making it bigger. Okay. I can also change the hardness of my brush. So a very hard brush is going to have a crisp edge, where a very soft brush is going to have a soft edge, almost like spray paint. Okay. The other thing I can do, which I ask you to play around with, is to change the opacity. So the opacity right here is going to determine how see-through my paint is. Okay. The lower the opacity, the more transparent. The higher the opacity, the more opaque. Okay. The way that you change colors is down here at the bottom. See, this blue is selected. If I double click on it, it'll bring up a color picker and I can change whatever color I want. Okay. See, if it was lower, I could still see the blue behind it. Okay. This is one. Now, I'm ready to move on to the next layer. However, I have all this paint on the image. I don't want to keep the paint on the image. However, I want you to leave it so that I can see that you experimented with all the different options. So instead of deleting this layer so you can see the image, I'm going to have you click on this little eyeball right here. What that does is it hides the layer. It doesn't delete it. It just hides it. Okay? So it's still there and you can always click it to bring it back if you want. It's a really nice tool. So the next edit I want you to make is to create a new layer again by clicking on this. Got it? And I want you to use the rectangular marquee tool or elliptical marquee tool, okay, to create a shape. If you go up here, the marquee tools are selection tools. If you hold your mouse over it, it shows elliptical marquee tool. That's going to create a circle. I could also create a rectangle, but I'm going to do a circle. What I'm going to have you do, notice I'm in a new layer, is I'm going to make a circle anywhere. If I wanted it to be a perfect circle, I would hold down Shift. Okay. Excellent. And I want you to fill in that circle with anything, with any color. I could either use my paintbrush, again, with my pink, and I could brush it in. See how it only allows the paint to go within the selected area? I could also use a paint bucket tool, which is sometimes hiding behind this gradient tool. If you control click on it, it's right there. Could do that to fill it in completely, like that. I'm going to hit Command Z because I like it better the other way. Okay. I just want you to fill in this in an interesting way. Okay. When I'm done, I need to get rid of this dotted line. The shortcut to getting rid of a dotted line is to hit Command D for deselect. That's also located up here in the select bar where it says deselect. Okay, reselect, deselect. All right, now I'm done with this one. Hit my eyeball. You get the pattern. Moving on to the next one. So this series of edits is a little bit different. I'm going to show you the first one, and then I think that you'll be able to do the rest on your own, okay? Instead of using the paintbrush tool or the marquee tool to edit this photograph, I'm going to have you use what's called an adjustment layer. And that's going to change the brightness, the contrast, the color, everything within the image itself. So to create a new adjustment layer, you're going to go down here, and instead of creating a new blank layer, you're going to go over to the half black, half white circle and click, which is to create a new fill or adjustment layer. I'm going to click, and I'm going to select solid color. See, it says over there on the directions, solid color. Still has my pink, okay? I'm going to hit OK. Now, I can't see my image at all. However, if I were to make this pink less opaque, I would be able to see the image again. Now, up here isn't the opacity tool I need. What I need to do is I need to change the layer's opacity itself. So you'll notice around here are the effects for the layers. The reason, once again, that I'm showing you all these tools is so that you can apply them to future projects. So just keep that in mind as I'm putting you through all these steps. I'm going to have this layer selected. I'm going to select opacity, and I'm going to lower it. Much better. So when might you use this? Maybe you want to create like a sepia tone on a photograph or make things look a little less warm and a little bit more cool by putting blue over an image. Okay, so color fill, change my opacity. When you like the way it looks, hit the eyeball. On to the next one. So create an adjustment layer for the following choices. For each adjustment layer, toggle the sliders, change the colors, see what you can do. When you like it, hit the eyeball tool so you don't see it and move on to the next one. So you're going to go through and you're going to create a series. Okay, gradient, pink. I could play around, linear, radial, deflected. Whoa, I'm going to go back to linear. Changing my scale, changing my angle. Play around, reverse. See what you think works the best. Okay, when you're done, hit OK, eyeball, move on to the next one. The reason why I'm going through these for you is I wanted to get to one that has a toggler. So brightness and contrast. Nothing popped up. However, up here it changed. You'll notice in many of these coming up that when you create a new layer, a new adjustment layer, it creates these toggle bars. If you click on it and you drag it to the right and the left, you can decide brighter, less bright, contrast, more contrasted, less contrasted. Okay? When you like the way it looks, go on to the next one. All right. Last but not least, when you are finished going through all of these selections, I would like you to go back to the image and turn on all the ones that you like. Okay? And save the image. Don't worry about this part. Save the image as your favorite version of the image that you've created. Put it in the folder, and you are good to go. Good luck.